I were to really hire someone, if I were to pay money to someone to say, hey, I want you to come in and be the CEO of Marc Incorporated. How's Marc Incorporated doing? What do I need to be doing to really take my success personally, professionally, to that whole nother level? And started studying what high-performing CEOs do. What are the questions they ask of their companies, of their employees, of their team, and really looked at it through that lens of, gosh, I am the CEO of Marc Incorporated. This is all I got. He's the best I can hire. And so bringing that mentality and asking those questions that a real high-performing CEO would ask. And so now what we do is we talk to our agents on that idea of, hey guys, how are we spending our time?
Good morning, Marc.
Good morning, Charlie.
Hey, it's good to see you.
I missed the memo on the sweater. Love the
sweater. It's Amy's fault, and we'll be seeing her in a minute. So we're going to be seeing you for an hour, and we're going to be talking about being the CEO of your life, and that's coming up on January 6th at 10 a.m. Eastern time. But let's talk about you for a minute. How did you get into this business?
So back in 1978, and I'm here in Denver, right? So my dad was a school teacher. He decided enough teaching school, enough middle schoolers, I want to sell real estate. So he opened up Grace Property Management and Real Estate here in Denver. And I was kind of employee number one because I was free child labor.
Right.
So I remember as a kid, getting sucked into, hey, I need you to go mow that lawn. I need you to go show this property, go paint this wall. I mean, I did it all. And so it kind of gave me a unique view into real estate. Both from an investment standpoint, from a management standpoint. So that was just kind of the world I grew up in. And I studied that as I got older. Eventually, I graduated Colorado State University. I moved out to Phoenix, Arizona. And I bought my first investment property in like 96. It was back when they did non-qualifying assumable loans, if you remember those. So I signed some papers and I owned a property, my first investment property. Right. And so we've kind of grown it and taken up from there. And so today we've got a pretty large real estate and property management company here in the Denver area. And we're staying busy with that.
So it wasn't the original plan to stay with the family business then if you went to Phoenix?
No. I didn't want to work for my dad, right? I mean, so what do you do? Well, I work for daddy. I mean, who wants to do that? Who wants to do that?
So do I, but anyway, go ahead.
But you never want to say it that way, right? I mean, So I did my own thing for a while, and my dad called me one day and he said, you know what? I need to hire a real estate agent / property manager. And I'm having trouble finding somebody. Job's yours if you want it. Yeah. And so I thought, well, this is something to do for a while. Sure. All right, I'll do that. So that was 20 years ago that I came in. So we've kind of grown slow and steady since then. I'm the president of the firm now. My dad's not real active in the day-to-day. So we're one of the larger property management companies in the state of Colorado. And we've just kind of had that slow, steady growth. But we want to make sure that we're enjoying what we're doing. Right. I mean, otherwise you burn out.
Sure. And property management is an interesting field. That's how I got That's how I got started in real estate back in '99 myself. Talk to me about what it means to be the CEO of your own life.
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, I'm sitting down with a buddy of mine, and he owns a really successful business, like uber successful. And I could tell that like in the last 12 months, his business had just gone to another level of crazy success. And I said, man, what'd you do? Like, how did you go from here to there? And he goes, oh, I hired a CEO. So he hired a CEO. Like, what does that even mean? Who hires a CEO? And he goes, well, I was running it. I was doing the day-to-day. It was fine. But I decided I was going to hire a CEO. So the CEO came in. He goes, and Marc, like he looked at my business through a whole different lens because he wasn't so involved in the day-to-day junk and all that stuff. So he could bring this new view. And man, he took my business to a whole nother level. And I said, well, like what do you do? Like, I don't understand. What does a CEO do? He goes, well, the first thing he did is he paid attention to the parts of the business that I was neglecting. I was like, well, that sounds cool. What does that mean? He goes, well, for example, like I'm a sales guy, right? I mean, I love to sell. So I spend my time as the business owner. I get out there and I sell and I sell and I sell. And that's great. He goes, I hate accounts receivable. So our accounts receivable was in the toilet. We had money outstanding. We weren't bringing anything, but I don't like that. I don't want to pay attention to that. So I didn't pay attention to that. So that's the first thing my CEO did is like, hey, I don't care if you like accounts payable or not. We got to tighten that area of the business up or it's going to kill the business. And so I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. And then they said, then he looked at some other things that I don't like accounting. Our accounting was a mess. We hadn't reconciled our books. And he said, so we started paying attention. He said, listen, as the CEO, first thing we got to do is whether you like these areas of your business or not, we've got to pay attention to these neglected areas. He said, just that in and of itself, like just took our business to a whole nother level. And I said, man, this sounds awesome. Like, wow, how cool. What else did your CEO do? And he said, well, then he asked me like, hey, where are you spending your time? What do you spend your time doing? And so he said, well, I told him how I spend my time. And, I'm a 5 a.m. guy. I'm of the 5 a.m. club or 4 a.m. club, whatever it is. I get up and I do all, and I'm real good with my time that way. He said, but the more we talked about it, the more I realized that like, I wasn't spending my time in a productive way. It was all busy work. So I felt productive because I was doing a lot of activity, but there was no productivity. I just wasn't getting done. So he changed the way I'm spending my time. So the more we talk, I was like, man, I don't need a CEO for my business. I was like, I need a CEO for my life. I need someone to come in and like, look at my life, look at the things I'm doing to kind of get control. And not that my life was out of control, but we all hit that point, especially in this year, right, with 2020, where we just feel burned out. We feel like we're running as fast as we can run. We're working as hard as we can work, but it's hard to see that progress type of a thing. I was talking to a guy the other day. He said just that. He said, man, I feel like 2020 was the hardest year ever. I worked harder than I ever worked. And yet I look up at the end of the year and I feel like I'm treading water. All I did all year was tread water. I didn't lose anything, but man, all those big grand plans I had, I just didn't get there. And that's real common that we hear this year. So we took that mentality, right? That CEO detached mentality and started looking at it through the idea of, gosh, if I were to really hire someone, if I were to pay money to someone to say, hey, I want you to come in and be the CEO of Marc Incorporated. How's Marc Incorporated doing? What do I need to be doing to really take my success personally, professionally to that whole nother level? And started studying what high performing CEOs do. What are the questions they ask of their companies, of their employees, of their team, and really looked at it through that lens of, gosh, I am the CEO of Marc Incorporated. This is all I got. He's the best I can hire. And so bringing that mentality and asking those questions that a real high performing CEO would ask. And so now what we do is we talk to our agents on that idea of, hey guys, how are we spending our time? What are the focus points that we're neglecting in you Incorporated? And when we look at it through that lens, it brings a different perspective and really helps us avoid those things that, we call burnouts and we call hitting the wall. All those things, they're really just a result of not having that proper CEO mindset.
Excellent. What are some questions real estate agents should be asking themselves to help prepare for next year?
Yeah. Well, the first question that we kind of ask of our agents is, what are the things you need to stop doing?
That's a great one. Yep.
That's a CEO question, because most of us come at it from the idea of, I've got my list of new projects I'm going to start next year. Well, and that's great. That's great. But what are the things that you need to stop doing? So every year, what we really encourage ourselves, our agents, both in our personal and our business lives to do is to say, take 20% of the things that you've been doing and you got to cut them out. If you're going to pick up 20% of new things, you got to cut out 20% of the old things. And the challenge is a lot of those things that we're cutting out, they aren't bad things. It's not like, I gotta stop going to the bar till midnight. Well, we all get that, right? Not the bad stuff, but what are the things that just are not getting you the results you need to get? And most of those are good things. And it's hard. Boy, it's hard to stop those things that you put in place because you put so much time and energy. Sure. But sometimes you got to just cut that off and say, it worked. Maybe it even worked for a while, but I'm going to turn my back on that. We're not going to do that anymore. We're going to focus on something else. So for us, for example, this was a hard one to cut out. But last year we said, because we do real estate sales as well. Mm-hmm. We basically said, we're going to stop working with buyers. We're not going to work with buyers anymore. And you think, well, Marc, that's stupid. Like, why would you cut off the buyers? Well, in our market's hot, crazy hot. And if you pick up a buyer, here's what's going to happen. You're going to spend the next 8 days driving around. This is back when we could actually get in cars and drive and take them from property to property. They're going to find one, they're going to make an offer, and they're going to be like, sorry, We just went under contract
right
8 hours ago. But it becomes this just repetitive thing. It's not a good use of your time. It's not a good use of your time. We'd rather focus on sellers, on commercial stuff. So it's just a matter of saying, gosh, working with buyers isn't wrong, but it's not the best use of our time. And that's a hard thing to cut off. But I think there are a lot of things like that for agents that we've got to figure out. We've got to pick and choose what's the best focus. So I think that for us this next year, as we're looking at our lifestyle, our businesses, all that, that's the first question we're asking is, okay, what do we need to stop spending time on? And boy, that can be tough. Do you have that list for you, Charlie? What are you going to stop doing next year?
Gosh, I need to finish my personal business plan for 2021, but that is always a question that I'm asking people, right? What do you need to stop doing? What do you need to start doing? And some of these things are things in our personal life, and some of these things are in our business life as well, right? There's some people that are still asleep right now. Maybe they need to stop sleeping late, right, and get up and start their day a little bit earlier, just as an example. So I appreciate those questions. Any other questions that you want our associates to be thinking about before they see you on the 6th?
Well, these are the questions we're going to kind of spend time on the 6th. We're going to walk through these on a deep level. But one more one that we really ask our people of is who should you be spending more time with? Who should you be spending more time with? Because for a lot of us that have been doing this for a while, we have our little niche group people, right? And that's great. That's great. We want to have that. But one thing that we found ourselves doing, or that I really found myself doing, I was challenged to do about a year ago, is I sat down and I wrote down like the 6 people that if I kind of had my magic wand, that I would love to have lunch with in that year. Right? And not crazy people, not the Pope. Right? I mean, let's be realistic here, right? Yeah. But who are people that are out of my sphere, like just a little bit out of my sphere, that, boy, I think if I could hang out with that guy over coffee, or if I could have a conversation with that woman, that would be pretty cool. That'd be pretty cool. And so I put that list together and started like reaching out, trying to make some connections that way. And the short end of the story is, man, I made some cool connections with people that a year ago, if you just said, hey, Marc, do you know this person? I'd be like, well, yeah, I know their name. I mean, wow. Yeah. They're pretty cool, right? Yeah. But they're people just like we are. And when we start looking for those connections, and not just a way of, gosh, how can they help me? That's just not it, right? But it's that idea of how do we broaden the group of people that are influencing us? And if we can improve that on just that one little thing, that can take your career to a whole different stratosphere of success. So that's one of the other questions
I like that one.
We'll talk about next week.
Awesome. Good. So we will see you back here on January 6th at 10 a.m. In the meantime, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Have a great, safe holiday.
Merry Christmas. Looking forward to seeing everybody then.
Thanks. Take care, Marc. Next up, I would like to welcome Coach Amy Lassen to the show. I don't know if you're Mrs. Claus or an elf or whatever, but you look great. It's good to see you, and good morning.
My normal attire. Good to see you.
Yes, your normal attire. We're going to spend the last several minutes of the show today talking about burnout. It's something that we've been hearing from agents quite a bit this month. They need a break. Luckily, they're going to get one, right? We have some long weekends coming up, and I think that if they want to take a break, now is an outstanding time to do so. Give me some opening thoughts on when you hear agent burnout. Just where does your mind take you?
Well, I think burnout happens differently for different people. So you and I both have coached some people who've had the best year of their career, and they are just exhausted, and that's something. I remember years and years and years ago in the crash, I shouldn't have buried the lead by saying during the crash, I called my sister, who is also an agent, to say, I figured it out. I hate real estate. Like, I get it now. I don't like this job I chose. And she said, wait a second, when was the last time you were paid? I was like, oh, yeah, that's it. That's what it is. So I was suffering burnout too. It's not like I was closing 8 a month. So I think burnout is different for different people. And maybe you're just burned out of doing it the COVID way. Maybe the COVID version of real estate has had its way with you. So I think we can talk about all the ways that it happened, but more valuable is, what can we do about it? What are the things that we can do to move ourselves forward with energy?
Well, I think you bring up a great point in the different forms of it. So you've worked really hard. You've had a great year. You're just tired. You need a break before you get going for next year. And then you've got the others that feel like they've been working really hard, but it's not been working.
In their wheels.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, they're in the situation where Marc was talking about a minute ago, where they've not had any listings this year. They've been dealing with buyers. It's been a crazy market, and it's writing 6-7 offers before they get one accepted. And then you've got buyers that are dropping out of the process during that because they just get fatigued themselves and like, you know what, I'm out. I'm going to rent for another year. I'm staying in mom's basement for another year or whatever. So there's that too. So you've got success and exhaustion, and you've got a lack of success. They feel like they're spinning their wheels. It's not working.
Yeah.
And then I think you've also got those that have really been impacted personally from COVID or family health issues. I mean, you've probably had clients with COVID. I have. They've got to take a break. They've got to quarantine. You have the, just the mental aspects of that. I was talking to somebody yesterday who was going to be having surgery this week, and he tested positive for COVID. So he can't have the surgery, but he feels fine. And he's like, is this a mistake? Like, what's the deal? This particular person manages a number of offices, so they had to get all the offices clean. It was just this whole big thing,
Sure.
And so you've got that. The COVID thing is going to be with us for a while, right? At least through the second or through the first half of next year. So maybe some tips on overcoming burnout, and this is a topic for a much longer show, and I realize that we've only got 7 minutes left, but take us through some tips maybe. When you think of burnout, I think of like a pattern interrupt, right? Taking a break. And that's another thing. We've not really been able to take vacations this year. Some people have traveled a little bit, but nobody took a 10-day cruise, unless it was like back in February.
Yeah.
And then knowing what we know now, you probably wish you weren't on that cruise. So, so there's been a little bit of travel, but most people really haven't taken a break. It's been a staycation in a home where they've been day after day after day. I think you mentioned on a show, a week or two ago, you're like, I feel like these walls are closing in. I spent all of my time right in this, and now going into winter, it gets a little more complicated, right? In the DC metro market and the Northeast, where maybe you could get outside and eat outside or visit your friends in a park or something back in the summer. That gets really complicated when it's 30 degrees out, right? And you're just stuck inside. So kind of some thoughts on ways to overcome this whole thing.
Well, I think you're making such a great point that we do need some actual relief. And I've mentioned before, the book that I've been reading, Willpower Doesn't Work, talks about how your environment is everything. So what you just said about, gosh, if I can't go outside, or, that could be challenging. So yes, I think really addressing your health, eating a lot of vegetables, this is silly, drinking a lot of water, doing everything possible to make yourself feel healthy. And then if it's humanly possible, to exercise even when it's cold. Charlie, I'll tell you, it seemed too cold to me to take my long walks. And then I was dog sitting and suddenly it wasn't too cold. And I had it was 14 degrees and it was fine. Yeah. So I think, really wrap your head around whether or not you don't have exercise options. But I want to address the real estate part specifically, because I think agents can tend to experience burnout year round for a couple of really simple reasons that you and I bring up all the time. One is, if you would be more organized about the work that you do, and I think Marc previously addressed this a little bit, it's like, what are you going to stop doing, right? Yes. We think that we're so busy. I run my tail off. I do so much. And it's like, how productive are you, right? And that agent that you and I coach who says, I'm exhausted, I'm overwhelmed. And it's like, well, when was the last time you closed the deal? Oh, I don't know. It's been a couple months. What are they doing? Right? It can't be that important if it's not leading to closings. Yep. So way more efficient. And that's a detailed topic for another day, but it's time to be more efficient with your processes. Do listing, contract to close much more efficiently. Hire that out. Have buyer process. Have listing process. Take advantage of the two of us, Charlie. Take advantage of all the resources we have shared about ways to be more on task. Don't reinvent real estate every single time you have a transaction. I think that's going to help you prevent burnout. Now, plenty of scattered agents will say, I don't have time. I don't have time to put systems in place. You will save so much time if you do. So part of it is me asking you to have faith in me and Charlie, that it will be worth your time to put the systems in place. So that's one thing. We could all be more efficient, save time, close the same deals in the same amount of time or less, and get home earlier and be with our families and have some sanity. The other thing is when you do that, when you standardly educate people every single time, you have fewer problems. So the drama, and I've shared this before, that I have a few agents in my life that are always full of drama. Right. Every time I see them, how are you? It's going to be oh, let me tell you about my dramatic seller, my problematic buyer. And it's chronic.
Right.
I just tell you, here's what she's going to say. And it's always going to be the same because she creates drama by not having better expectations. Everything's always a surprise. Everything always has to be handled at the last minute. So I think 2 best ways to handle burnout and to prevent it is to be much more organized in the way you run your business and to educate clients well before problems arise.
Good. I like that. But
I love what you said about just mindset and health and well-being, because when we kind of become drones, even the most efficient, hardworking agents, just like, fine, great, my production, and let's not live to work. Let's work to live, right? So time to find some outlets, baby. I don't know.
I mean, I suspect when we are elderly, we're not going to be and retired and maybe on our deathbed, we're not going to be thinking, wow, I wish I would have closed one more sale, right? It would have been, I wish I would have spent more time with my family or done this or that. Probably more experiences, right? It's not going to be, I wish I would have bought more stuff even, right? It would have been probably experiences. So I think that that's important, and that's something to think about. And there's no reason not to give ourselves some grace this year, because it's just been an avalanche of bad news.
Yeah. Right.
It was COVID, and then it was the racial unrest, and then it was the election. It was just so negative, right? And that's continued to drag on, frankly, until this week, right? And I think it's going to, there's still going to be some negativity around that. So giving ourselves some grace. And for me, and I admit that I do not practice this all the time. But gratitude's in the moment when you find yourself frustrated, right? When I always pick the wrong line at the supermarket, and it's always the longest line, right? To be able to sit there or stand there and say, at least I'm lucky enough to be shopping in the grocery store and I can buy fresh food and I have the money to do so, right? That can snap you back into a very different reality, right? You're sitting in traffic, you're always hitting all the red lights or something like that. Well, at least I'm lucky enough to be driving a car, right? I can afford a car. I'm driving in a place that I want to be. So those that get caught in this kind of negative mindset, I think that the gratitudes, I am all for, writing out what we're grateful for in the morning. We talk about that in business planning, right? The powerful morning routine stuff, but, also, using that throughout the day when we find ourselves negative, and then turning off the news. I tell people, if you really need a good recap of national and world news, the 3 major networks, not cable, ABC, NBC, and CBS, it's 30 minutes. It's typically non-biased. You learn about your country and the world in and out in 30 minutes, right? We don't need to be going home and watching cable news all day. And I don't care what the channel is. It's not healthy. They're brainwashing you, so. Exactly. So those are my thoughts on burnout. I think, the pattern interrupt, and then, take a break the next couple of weeks, slow down a little bit.
So I really want to speak to that very last thing, and I know we're at time. Can I?
Sure.
So I have a December specific recommendation, and this came up yesterday with a man that I have coached this year who has had by far the best year of his career, and he has been frying on the burner. Like, he is really impressed with the money in the bank account and not sure it was worth it because he is pretty over it.
Yeah.
And he said to me, I don't know what to do because I really want a breather. And he said, and I know what's going to happen if I take my foot off the gas. I'm not going to have the January and February I want. And so I said, okay, you have a decision to make right now because you really are fried, and I get that. But I said, here's what I would like to ask you to weave into your business plan for 2021. Look ahead to next December and plan right now to deliver 200 full color, printed, bound home value reports and do holiday pop buys for 100 people. Plan it all out now and delegate the whole thing.
Right.
Next December, when it comes, it's done, and it will happen while you're out skiing or whatever it is. So he really liked that idea. So he's going to get ahead of it and not have, Christmas, or it's like everything from Thanksgiving through New Year's just be a guilt fest that he's not doing enough with his clients.
I like it. So this is our last show together, and I didn't get to really show off my sloth here.
Is it? Because I think I think we have one on the 23rd.
Well, there will be a show on the 23rd, but I'm taking the 23rd off. So surprise everybody. I'm sure that you and Eyerusalem can cover that and do a fantastic job. So Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. I will see you back in the new year. I hope you have a chance to also have a little bit of downtime. And thanks for everything that you've done for Remax Allegiance this year.
Oh, you're welcome. It is such a treat.